Good morning, friends. As we gather today, let us take a moment to reflect on the gift of each new day. With every sunrise, God gives us a fresh start, a chance to begin anew, to live with purpose, and to honor Him in all that we do. But often, in the rush of life, we lose sight of the profound significance of how we begin our mornings. The way we start our day has the power to shape the rest of it, and it is in those early hours that we lay the foundation for how we will live. Today I want to talk about 5 morning habits that, if we are not careful, can hinder our relationship with God and keep us from living out the purpose He has for us. Let us open our hearts and minds as we explore how we can begin each day with intention, gratitude, and a deep connection with our Creator. When we wake up in the morning, the very first thing we should do is turn our hearts toward God. Sadly, many people are so busy with the rush of life that they completely overlook this vital moment of connection with their Creator. We might stretch out our hands for the phone, check emails, or jump right into our daily tasks. But we fail to realize that each new day is a gift from God. It's a sacred opportunity, not just to start our to-do lists, but to start our day in His presence. God desires that we give Him the first part of our day, not as a routine, but as a sign of our reverence and love for Him. The Scriptures remind us, "But seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." Matthew 6:33. This is not just about a quick prayer before you rush out the door. This is about setting the tone of your heart and aligning your priorities with His will before the world can pull you in every direction. Imagine this. How can you expect to navigate the difficulties of the day, the trials and temptations, without first seeking the guidance and strength that only God can provide? Just as a soldier would never go into battle without preparing for it, we should not enter the day without preparing our hearts and minds through prayer, meditation, and Scripture. If we neglect time with God, we risk facing the day unprepared, weak, and vulnerable to the enemy's schemes. Now, let's be honest. It's easy to say we're too busy. We all have responsibilities. But if we're honest, the truth is that we make time for the things we care about. We find time for breakfast, for our work, for entertainment, for our family. So why not give the first few moments of your morning to God, the one who sustains you and gives you breath? To neglect this time is to say that other things take precedence over your relationship with Him. And that's a dangerous place to be. We must remember that God is not just a part of our day, but the very reason we have a day at all. Every moment is an opportunity to glorify Him, and it begins in the quiet of the morning, when you make the conscious decision to set your mind on things above. In Psalm 5:03, the psalmist says, "In the morning, Lord, you hear my voice. In the morning I lay my requests before you and wait expectantly." This is the heart we should approach God with, a heart that desires to hear His voice, to lay our burdens before Him, and to trust that He will guide our steps through the day ahead. When we begin our day with God, we invite His presence into our lives. We invite His peace, His wisdom, and His strength to carry us through whatever may come. When we neglect time with Him, we are effectively telling God that we can handle things on our own. But the truth is, we can't. We are weak, but He is strong. We are lost without His guidance, but in Him we find our direction. So let us make it a habit to rise early, to seek God first, and to make our relationship with Him the most important part of our day. This is not only a practice of devotion, but an act of obedience, showing God that we recognize His place in our lives and that we trust Him above all else. When we open our eyes to the new day, we are presented with a choice to set our hearts and minds on the positive or to be consumed by negativity. It's easy to let the weight of the world, the burdens of yesterday, or the uncertainties of tomorrow overshadow our morning. We can wake up groggy, tired, or stressed, and instead of starting the day with hope and faith, we allow negative thoughts to creep in. These thoughts can range from worries about our circumstances to frustrations with life, people, or ourselves. But when we wake up in this negative spirit, we miss the opportunity to embrace the joy and peace that God offers us every single day. A negative spirit can easily take root in our hearts, especially when we face trials, disappointments, or unmet expectations. The challenges of life can sometimes cloud our vision, and it can feel like the weight of the world is pressing down on us. But when we choose to start our day with negativity, we are allowing our circumstances to dictate our mood instead of allowing God's truth to shape our perspective. The Bible clearly speaks against this kind of mindset. Philippians 4:8 reminds us, finally, brothers and sisters, whatever is true, whatever is noble, whatever is right, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is admirable, if anything is excellent or praiseworthy, think about such things. When we wake up, we must remember that we have the power to choose what we focus on, and we should choose to focus on God's goodness, His faithfulness, and His promises. Negative thinking is like a seed that, if not dealt with, can grow into a bitter root. It can start small, but it soon spreads and affects every area of our lives. A negative spirit will make it difficult to see the blessings around us. It will make us lose sight of the joy that should fill our hearts every morning. It will turn our thoughts inward, leaving us focused on our problems instead of focusing on God's solution. But God calls us to live differently. In 1 Thessalonians 5:16-18, we are told, "Rejoice always, pray continually, give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." Notice that it doesn't say rejoice when things are going well or give thanks only when you feel happy. No, it says always. This includes our mornings. It's a command to choose joy, not based on our feelings, but based on the unchanging truth of who God is. We must recognize that a negative spirit does not honor God. It dishonors the grace He gives us to face each day. God has given us a new day, a new opportunity, and His Word tells us that His mercies are new every morning, Lamentations 3:23. To wake up and allow negativity to take over is to dishonor the gift of that day. When we start our day with a negative mindset, we close ourselves off to the blessings that God has waiting for us. We fail to see the beauty in the small things and miss the grace He is pouring out. Instead, we must wake up with hearts full of gratitude. We must choose to focus on what God has already done for us. We must look at the day ahead not as a burden, but as a gift, knowing that God is with us through every step. The trials will come, yes, but God's presence will sustain us. Psalm 118:24 says, "This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it." Every morning is a reminder that God is in control and that He has a plan for our lives. Even when things aren't perfect, we can choose to trust in His faithfulness. When we choose to rise above the negativity and approach the day with a heart of joy, we align ourselves with God's will. This doesn't mean ignoring life's challenges, but it means acknowledging that no matter what happens, God is with us. He is greater than any problem or hardship. A positive spirit rooted in faith brings honor to God and opens our hearts to the blessings He has in store for us. So when you wake up tomorrow, choose to rise above the negativity. Choose to set your mind on things that are good, pure, and praiseworthy. Let your heart be filled with the peace that only God can give. And as you do, you will find that your day will be brighter, your burdens lighter, and your spirit more alive in His presence. When we wake up each morning, we are given an opportunity to express gratitude to God for the gift of life, the breath in our lungs, and the endless blessings He has provided. Sadly, too many of us start our day without taking a moment to acknowledge the goodness of God. We are so consumed with the challenges ahead, the to-do lists, and the worries of the day that we forget to simply say, thank you. Gratitude is not just a polite gesture. It is a vital expression of our hearts towards God. When we fail to express our thankfulness, we fail to recognize the countless blessings that God has given us. Each day, we are blessed in ways we often overlook. We take for granted the simple things: our health, our families, our homes, the food on our table, the safety we enjoy. The fact that we wake up each morning is itself a miracle. Psalm 132 tells us, "Praise the Lord, my soul, and forget not all His benefits." How often do we forget the countless benefits God pours out upon us daily? When we forget to thank Him, we begin to live as if these blessings are owed to us, as if we deserve them. But the truth is, we don't deserve anything. Everything we have is a gift from God, and we should approach each day with a heart overflowing with gratitude. When we neglect to give thanks, we dishonor God's generosity. Gratitude is a response to His grace, acknowledging that we are completely dependent on Him for everything. To fail to give thanks is to forget that it is He who holds all things together, including our very lives. It is easy to get caught up in what we don't have, to focus on the things that are missing or the problems that lie ahead. But this mindset leaves us spiritually dry and distant from the one who provides for us. In 1 Thessalonians 5:18, we are instructed, "Give thanks in all circumstances, for this is God's will for you in Christ Jesus." Not just in the good times, but in all circumstances, we are called to thank God. This means even when life is difficult, when we face trials, or when things don't go as we hope, we are to recognize God's presence in it all and trust that He is working for our good. Gratitude shifts our perspective. When we express thanks, we remind ourselves of God's faithfulness and His provision. It refocuses our hearts from self-pity and discouragement to hope and trust. The act of thanksgiving keeps us humble, reminding us that we are not self-sufficient but wholly dependent on God. It aligns our hearts with His will and helps us to see His hand at work in the everyday moments of our lives. We must also remember that gratitude is an act of worship. To thank God is to honor Him for who He is and what He has done. It is a declaration that we recognize His sovereignty over our lives. In Psalm 95:2-3, we read, "Let us come before Him with thanksgiving and extol Him with music and song. For the Lord is the great God, the great King above all gods." When we wake up each morning, we are standing on holy ground, and we must acknowledge that the day is a gift from the Almighty. To start our day without giving thanks is to miss the very reason for our existence. To glorify God in everything we do. Gratitude also deepens our relationship with God. When we thank Him, we are drawing closer to Him. We are acknowledging that we recognize His goodness, His mercy, and His provision. It is in this place of thanksgiving that our hearts become open to hear from Him, to receive His guidance, and to experience His peace. Gratitude builds an intimate connection with our Creator, reminding us that He is with us through every moment of our lives. So how do we make gratitude a part of our daily routine? It starts with recognizing the goodness of God as soon as we wake up. Before we begin our day, we should thank God for the simple blessings we often overlook. We should express our appreciation for the gift of life, for our families, for our work, and for His constant presence. Even in the midst of difficulties, we must choose to thank Him, trusting that He is working in every situation for our good. When we cultivate a heart of gratitude, we align ourselves with God's will, and we honor Him with our lives. Gratitude not only transforms our perspective, but it also transforms our relationship with the One who has blessed us beyond measure. In the early hours of the day, when we first open our eyes, the world is waiting for us. It's easy to get caught up in the whirlwind of life, work, responsibilities, and the never-ending demands of the day. But how often do we allow the world to set our priorities instead of turning to God first? This is a danger we must recognize. For when we prioritize the world over God's will, we lose sight of the purpose He has for our lives. The world will always offer us distractions, but it's only in seeking God's will that we find true peace and fulfillment. Each morning is a fresh opportunity to reset our hearts and minds. Yet many of us immediately jump into the day by checking emails, scrolling through social media, or worrying about work or relationships. In doing so, we allow the world to dictate the course of our day instead of seeking God's direction. We must remember that the world is not our master, God is. When we allow the world to take precedence, we are saying that our relationship with God is secondary to the demands of life. But this is not the order God desires for us. In Matthew 6:33, Jesus tells us, "But seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." This verse is a powerful reminder that God desires to be first in our lives, and when we prioritize His will above everything else, He will take care of the rest. God's will is not always the easiest path to follow, but it is the most fulfilling. When we make the world our priority, we are chasing after things that are temporary, things that fade away. But when we seek God's will, we are pursuing eternal treasures that can never be taken from us. Jesus Himself warns us in Matthew 6:19-21, "Do not store up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moths and vermin destroy, and where thieves break in and steal. But store up for yourselves treasures in heaven, where moths and vermin do not destroy, and where thieves do not break in and steal." The things of this world are fleeting. No matter how hard we work, no matter how many accomplishments we achieve, we cannot take these things with us into eternity. But the will of God has eternal significance. When we align ourselves with God's purpose, we invest in something that will never fade. When we prioritize the world over God's will, we also risk losing our focus on what truly matters. The world offers us a false sense of security, telling us that if we have enough possessions, success, or recognition, we will be happy. But this is a lie. True happiness and fulfillment come from living according to God's will, not from chasing after the temporary pleasures of the world. In Mark 8:36, Jesus asks, "What good is it for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul?" This question cuts to the heart of the matter. If we gain everything the world has to offer but lose our relationship with God, what have we truly gained? The answer is nothing. It is only by prioritizing God's will that we find true peace and purpose. Moreover, when we focus on God's will first, we experience His guidance and peace throughout the day. We no longer have to rely on our own strength and understanding to navigate life's challenges. Instead, we trust that God is leading us, that He has a plan for our lives, and that He will provide for our every need. Proverbs 3:5-6 encourages us, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways submit to Him, and He will make your paths straight." This promise is a reminder that when we prioritize God's will, He will guide us, and His way will always be the best way. Prioritizing God's will over the world also means living with an eternal perspective. The world wants us to focus on the here and now, to chase after success, status, and possessions. But God calls us to a higher purpose. He calls us to live for His glory and to seek first His kingdom. This doesn't mean we ignore the world or its responsibilities, but it means that we approach everything in life through the lens of God's will. Our work, our relationships, our time, everything should be directed toward honoring Him. In Colossians 3:23-24, we are reminded, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters, since you know that you will receive an inheritance from the Lord as a reward." Every part of our lives should be an offering to God, and when we prioritize His will, we bring honor to Him in all things. So when you wake up in the morning, ask yourself, am I putting God first today? It's easy to get distracted by the world's demands, but we must remember that God has a higher purpose for us. He wants to guide us, to bless us, and to use us for His kingdom. When we prioritize God's will above all else, we align ourselves with His eternal purposes, and we find true joy, peace, and fulfillment in Him. Let us commit each day to seeking God's will first and trusting that He will lead us in His perfect way. Every morning that we wake up, we are given a new opportunity. It is not just another day to survive, to rush through, or to merely mark off the hours. No. Each day is a gift from God, a chance to live with meaning, to fulfill a purpose that is greater than ourselves. Yet too many people wake up and simply go through the motions. They rise from bed, stretch, and begin the routine of their day without ever considering the greater purpose for which they were created. They live their lives like a ship drifting aimlessly in the sea, without a rudder to guide them. But God has a purpose for each of us. He has a plan for every moment of our lives. In the book of Proverbs it says, "In their hearts humans plan their course, but the Lord establishes their steps." Proverbs 16:9. We were not created to live without direction. When we wake up each morning, we should ask ourselves, what is God calling me to today? How can I serve Him today? Every day presents a new opportunity to honor God and to make a difference in this world. To start the day without purpose is to walk through life as if we are simply existing rather than living with intent. Purpose gives direction to our lives. It helps us focus on what truly matters, and it steers us away from distractions. When we don't have a purpose, we become easily consumed by the trivial things of life, our worries, our desires, and our personal ambitions. But when we live with purpose, we put the things of God at the forefront of our mind. We recognize that our lives are not our own. They are meant to reflect His glory. We must also recognize that God's purpose for our lives is not just about achieving personal success or fulfilling our own dreams. It is about advancing His kingdom. Jesus Himself said in Matthew 6:33, "But seek first His kingdom and His righteousness, and all these things will be given to you as well." Our purpose is wrapped up in His will. We are called to love Him, to serve others, and to share the good news of the gospel. When we wake up without a purpose, we miss the greater plan that God has set in motion for us. Starting the day without purpose can also lead to frustration and a sense of emptiness. We were designed to be purposeful people, and when we live without a clear vision of why we are here, we become like wanderers, searching for fulfillment in things that can never satisfy. But when we align our hearts with God's will, our purpose becomes clear, and we are filled with the peace and joy that only He can provide. The key to starting the day with purpose is to take a moment, even if it's just a few seconds, to commit your day to God. Ask Him to guide you, to use you, and to give you clarity in what you are meant to do. As we dedicate our plans to Him, we recognize that He is the one who will establish our steps. We trust that He will lead us to fulfill His purpose for our lives, no matter what that may look like. As you wake up tomorrow, remember that God has something significant for you to do, and He wants to be a part of your day. Don't let the rush of life take over. Take a moment to center yourself in His purpose. Seek Him first, and let everything else fall into place. When you start the day with purpose, your life will have direction, your heart will be at peace, and you will be walking in the fullness of God's plan for you. As we close, let us remember that each morning is not just the start of another day, but an opportunity to live with intention, purpose, and a heart full of gratitude. God has entrusted us with this precious gift of life, and how we begin our day shapes how we live it. Let us not waste these moments on negativity, distractions, or purposelessness, but instead let us commit ourselves to waking up each day with a heart ready to seek His will, embrace His blessings, and live for His glory. When we make God our priority, when we begin each day with Him, we will walk in His strength, His peace, and His purpose. May each morning be a fresh start to honor Him in all we do, and may we walk confidently in the path He has set before us.